His research looks at video gaming, and he's written 2 monographs, Video Games and Storytelling, Reading Games and Playing Books, and Video Games and Postcolonialism, Empire Plays Back. He's also the co-editor of a special issue, Postcolonial Perspectives in Video Games. He was named the DIGRA Distinguished Scholar in 2019, which I didn't know, but I'm absolutely delighted to announce that. Congratulations, Souvik. He's also curated open access DH projects on the Dutch cemetery at Chinsura and the Scottish cemetery in Calcutta, and the 19th century Bengali industrialist Motilal Seal. So welcome, Souvik, and I'm looking forward to this.
It is a pleasure, Deborah, and thank you all for kind of having me here. I'll just start straight away because I know that we have there's a time kind of constraint. So if you just let me know if you can see my presentation, and just start straight away. Can you see my presentation at all? Brilliant.
Yeah,
so, well, I mean, so I've been working on DH for a while now, and I want to today. Going to be slightly different because I want to talk about the voices that are there but can't be heard, and certainly kind of from the point of view of postcolonialism, responses to empire, and kind of colonialism that we kind of have to, especially kind of in spaces like where I'm working, we have to continually kind of negotiate with. And also, finally, of kind of dismantling colonial structures as we kind of work in humanities practices. So, I mean, these book covers are just indicative of what I'm about to talk about. So, I'm actually going to start with Rupika Rissam's fantastic work on postcolonial DH, which you're probably all familiar with, where Rissam says that postcolonial DH is an approach to uncovering and intervening in the disruptions within the digital cultural record produced by colonialism and neoliberalism. So it's kind of all about intervening and uncovering disruptions, intervening the records that are already there. So I just look at it as kind of intervening in the archival kind of practices, really. If you can, there's a longer bit of the text really where she talks about designing new workflows, building new archives, tools, databases that actively resist re-inscriptions of colonialism. So that's what I'm kind of interested in. And so this is my title, the one on white, and I'm going to talk about archiving colonial cemeteries with postcolonial DH methodologies. So a little bit of background, personal background here. In the sense that well, some of you already know me and from earlier, and we've seen some of this work before. But in 2017, I completed a digital database of the colonial Scots and Dissenters cemetery in Kolkata, India. And this was the outcome of a UK-India research initiative, UK collaboration, just like the one that is kind of we are part of at the moment. Since then, I've presented on this elsewhere in many places, but this is not the story that I want to be. This is the story that of what I haven't presented on. This is the story of a parallel digital archive that hides silently within the digital archive of the cemetery. So even before I came here, one of my colleagues said, "How is it possible to kind of talk about a colonial cemetery and then say it contributes to postcolonial DH?" And how can you even make a digital cemetery archive possible? So these are questions that I'm of course going to be tackling now and of course subsequently. And just below you can see the website that I'll be talking about. You can play around with it, go online and log in if you want to, and check it out. Scott Cemetery Archive, Kolkata.in. So. This is what it looks like, the Scott Cemetery website. So I've just got 3 panels here. The first is the homepage, and you have kind of basic information about the cemetery and an introduction to the project. And on the extreme right is basically one of the sample pages from the cemetery where we have like, I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor, but where we have the image of the tomb. slightly squished here, and as much detail as we have been able to get, and of course geotagged data like geospatial data, and the information that we have got about this person, of course, is from a multiplicity of sources, both offline and online, and there's a short bibliography and kind of hyperlinks to where we have got our material from, and of course metadata, which, as you know, is of primary importance, and we'll be talking about it later. And again, based on the metadata and based on the information we have in the central panel, you can see a somewhat kind of a big data analysis type thing, where we have a geographical kind of distribution of the people who were buried in the Scottish cemetery. You can see there's somebody in Australia, some people in the USA, and certainly quite a few in Southeast Asia. In fact, one of the persons who's connected to Australia is the son of somebody who designed the early Australian flag. Well, not really, but I just thought I'd say this. But then again, you can see here, you can see the causes of death really, and you can see cholera emerging as the major kind of like, so all of these. Uh, but moving beyond this, I just put in a search using the word Indian and India in the database, and here are a few names really that came up. Many more that I haven't managed to get in the screenshot. But I want to. So I was just looking at some names which looked really kind of. I was like, what is the connection with Indian really? Except the fact that they're buried there, and what other kind of connections can be unpacked? So I'll just take the example of this person called Sarah Knight Chisholm and her husband George Chisholm. And I'll point out some things that we were able to unearth and which don't kind of really come to our notice in the history books or in the traditional ways in which history is told, or even in the traditional ways in which history is archived, whether digitally or physically. This is actually a page which I was able to get from the will of certain George Chisholm, and I want to show you. I want to zoom in a little bit and show you something here. So at the last in the last line, I don't know if you can read it. Can anybody read this? I bequeath to my housekeeper, and now moving on to the next page. Moti Khanum, Sikka rupees 15,000, including a written engagement I had given her, bearing date so and so for so and so. So this person uh, is actually kind of leaving 15,000 Indian rupees, which would cost around about well 30,000 pounds probably in kind of I'm kind of I might be wrong. I was just checking this in the morning, but certainly a huge amount of money in today's terms, and he's leaving this for his housekeeper Moti Khanum, and that made me wonder. So who is this housekeeper, and and then why is he leaving so much to this person, to this Indian woman? Uh, then there is again this person, like, well, in Spivak's essay, Bhuvaneshwari Devi is the person who never speaks, subaltern speak. But Moti Khanum, at least, well, Spivak kind of told us about Bhuvaneshwari Devi. But somebody like Moti Khanum will never be spoken of and will never kind of enter the archives, excepting tendentially like this. And the speculation is probably she was the mother of his children, really, she was his wife. And he obviously is not allowed to kind of acknowledge her. But the amount of money he's leaving for her, and then subsequent documents that we kind of unearth. In fact, actually, later on, I find that the Untold Lives blog in the British Library also actually says a similar story, tells a similar story about George Chisholm and his Indian wife. And there are many such examples. For example, there's a Charles Reed who is denied British justice because he is born of an Indian mother, and he kind of spends 2 lakh rupees, 200,000 rupees in litigating against the East India Company. So this is a scenario I want to talk about, that things that kind of emerge from what is not usually expected, like the Moti Khanums, and which who are hidden in the colonial archives. Uh, well, usually never to be found unless they're unless we look in kind of this digitized documents. And the second case I want to talk about is so this statue is kind of something that fascinates me. It's a statue of somebody called Reverend Thomas Jones, and this is the most famous tomb in the cemetery that I've worked in because it's the most visited. It is visited by the members of the Khasi Jaintia Association regularly, and it's kind of they lay flowers on it, wreaths on it, because he's the founding father of the Khasi alphabet. uh, so he's actually he introduced the Roman alphabet in among the Khasi community, and as you can read that he so let me show you what the Khasi alphabet, excuse me, Khasi alphabet looks like. It looks like that. So if you go to the Khasi community, they write in Roman alphabet, they write using the Roman alphabet. And this is what he says, that I write them down in alphabetical order with Roman characters and everything that I can glean from them, etc. So I can see that Thomas Jones has two statues. There's one in Cherrapunji and there's one in Shillong. And he's an interesting figure. He's almost virtually lost from history, really. Although he is kind of a Welshman, is part of the British establishment, really. But he's also not part of it in the sense that he's kind of continually protesting against what is happening. And he says, like you see below, he says that I would be the partaker of the sins of their oppressors and totally unworthy of the name of a benefactor of the suffering Khasi, as well as inconsistent with my profession as a missionary of the gospel. So he's hounded, and he has a bizarre escape through the Sundarbans, and he dies in Calcutta, where we find him buried today. But you can see his statue, this really strange statue with the book with the ABKD title, and he has a saw in his hand because he apparently taught them wood cutting and also skills of kind of making lime and other things. So he's a very popular figure in this part of the world, in the northeast of India, in Meghalaya, Shillong, and Cherrapunji. But a figure who is marginalized in kind of standard histories and the colonial archives. And finally, a few more examples, two more, and one is of this tomb of Durga Muni Basu. She is the wife of one of the first MRCS doctors to have qualified from India, and this doctor is called Dwarakanath Das Basu. Now we find a lot of stories about Dwarakanath. He was a converted Christian, and he had to run away from his family. He was kidnapped by his family, and then he ran away, and then went to his teacher and so on. And then he went to England. And this is a story that we find. I was able to find. This is kind of a bizarre connection again from that he apparently kind of challenged some kind of British youth to a competition, a swimming competition in Holborn, Bath, when he kind of arrived in England. So again, thinking of it as kind of, I mean, this is happening in 1845. Thinking of it as kind of a challenge, perhaps, and as kind of a way to establish his perhaps equality with kind of the people he's meeting. And let me just kind of quickly show you another well. The article from the Times, really. So this is the article from the Times. This is the page, and you can find a really small article here, which says a Brahmin swimmer. Now, this article is almost impossible to find because whatever search terms you put in, somehow the Gale database, and this is again something we talk about when we're talking about digital humanities and digital archives. The Gale database is unable to find because it doesn't kind of somehow it hasn't OCR'd it correctly, or the spellings are unfamiliar. So Dwaraknath Das Basu is lost forever to the person searching searching the archives, whether physically or digitally, unless you just maybe happen to come across it somehow. So, but then what is interesting is that it says that look at the language. It says that that is rather remarkable that the first desire of the children of the Ganges should be to enjoy the luxury of the bath. But then Dwaraknath Basu signified a wish to compete in the match with English swimmers for the prizes, and he obviously didn't win. But then, of course, the article is quite kind and says that he's taken a 50-day journey, so he's probably enervated. Uh, so these are kind of things that kind of emerge from these archives, from the standard colonial archives, with well, which kind of somewhat reading against the colonial structure of the archive, reading against what is usually highlighted or focused or curated. And finally, I mean, I just couldn't resist this one because we are all kind of now going through the uh, the dilemma of whether to get vaccinated or not in Calcutta, and so this is mm, somebody who's buried in the cemetery, who's William Cameron, who's talking about how people are resistant to. He finds the astonishing indifference with which the natives still regard the great blessing which the government offers them through vaccination, through the smallpox vaccine. He's also talking about the corruption of the Tekadars or the Tikadars, who are the inoculators in the region. But again, one would also then kind of from this kind of a kind of report, one would also speculate about what would be the version of the Tikadars themselves, and what would be is it possible then to look for some perhaps local accounts of the of vaccination that might be available. So um, which is why I've kind of I've kind of thought of taking a another look at these archives, even the Scottish Cemetery archives that I've built earlier, to perhaps restructure the metadata that is there in the kind of in the framework of the archive, to create metadata that will disrupt the existing rationale of the archive, and perhaps to create metadata that will uh, help us curate other kinds of sets of information which do not normally kind of emerge in our kind of in our uh, sort of construction of such archives. Or again, then extracting data from the fissures of existing archives, just like the Chishom will, where we have Moti Khanum. So a long time ago, somebody had told me that digital humanities is like a chainsaw, and you kind of like saw through vast swathes, the forests of data. And for against that, I would say that it's also like a scalpel. So instead of kind of like the big data, one perhaps it might be of some use to look at the little data that is often kind of belittled, made little in in terms of kind of these swathes of big data, because they're after all the code and the algorithms, they're very kind of west centric. Uh, so again, then I would also say that another thing to do again for myself and for others is to not take for granted the archiving system, and then look for what is unusual really and different. And then, of course, I mean, again, this is like the reading between the archives, reading between the different archives that are already there, reading between the lines of the different archives that are already there, and looking for oral history accounts where they're possible at all, hearsay, anecdotes, and what have you, especially like the vaccination uh, kind of that I talked about, or kind of these kinds of things, and then kind of taking local accounts and then telling a story using these local accounts. So I think that is pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. I mean, thank you for listening. And this is, well, you can look at the Scott Cemetery archive as well as the two other archives that I've worked on, and be happy to address any queries and comments that you have.
Souvik, thank you so much. I had a question, Vic. Shall I open to the floor first? If I can see somebody's got their hand up, and it's going to just take me a moment to identify. Kavita, please.
So should I just take the question now, or okay?
Yeah, let's take a few questions. Kavita's got her hand up, so I'll let her go first.
Sorry, some technical issues. Can you carry on?
Oh, so Deborah is asking, most of the digitization projects take the architecture indices file names of the Colonial archive, which makes absolutely, which means all flaws replicate and worsen the illusions of the archive. So I was this is exactly what I was trying to say, and I was actually trying to say that I plead guilty to this myself, and this is what I've been observing of late when I've been looking. To be honest, all this happened when I when I had to renew the domain of my website, so I had to go back to the website and look at the architecture and the code and everything, and that's when I was kind of thinking that. I'm, I mean, instead of kind of the set architecture of kind of coding certain kinds of information, demographic, and then certain, and there are other kinds of information that we could kind of think of coding, things of, which are affective perhaps, and then perhaps even in certain cases like the vaccine, which I was thinking, perhaps accounts which we get from hearsay, then introducing an entirely different kind of metadata, kind of set of metadata really. Because at the moment, I was looking at my metadata, and the closest I could find to kind of let's say non-colonial kind of archival metadata would be Bengali, Indian, and these kinds of things. Just still demographic and perhaps I mean perhaps something which would and this is something I can't articulate because we are so enmeshed in these structures that post-colonial DH is something in becoming is happening really. We're actually kind of having to decolonize the mind in kind of DH as well, literally. So that these illusions, I think we are getting there. We're moving towards this, and the first step is to come to such a conference or such a workshop to talk about this. So I think I would say to kind of redefine our entire set of metadata, and also to involve more anecdotes, more things that, and also involve visual material, because there's quite a lot of visual material that kind of which is totally missed in these archives. So, yeah.
I mean, it's
That's
struck me
half
that
an answer.
yeah, no,
I'm
it's
not very
fascinating.
happy with it, but yeah.
I mean, it struck me that one methodology of beginning with the cemetery and working backwards, so you actually shift the focus from the archive, is a new way of thinking about the urban history of Calcutta and its relationship to other parts of British India. I mean, also DH gives us the ability, albeit in a flawed manner, to bring certain archives into conversation that may in new ways. And you still have a large amount of serendipity and happenstance. But then that was always a characteristic of conventional work in the colonial archive as well. I think the systematic nature of archival searches were always, to a certain extent, illusory. They were never that systematic.
Actually, yes.
So I can see Ben's got, Ben, do you want to ask a question? I won't read it out. It's better if you speak it. Are you there, Ben?
You hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, fab. So, I think, yeah, the question's a bit all over the place. Sorry, Souvik. I was wondering, especially working with big data, the kind of little data is the most interesting part normally. But do you think we often need to assemble these kind of big data archives in order to know what little data is in the first place?
Well, we are always, I mean, again, again guilty as charged, in the sense that with digital databases, we're always kind of trying to make sense with the big data, and sorry, I think I can hear myself echoing. In a little. Yeah. So I think yes. I mean, we are already assembling the big data, and the big data that we are assembling are being assembled according to a certain logic, really. And of course, then the question also arises as to what is the big in the big data, what we are considering big, really. And big and little, they're relative terms. What is, and which is why I said, I think, I don't know if this is kind of audible, because I said little and littled with a D, little and littled as well. Is so uh, I mean, let me just give you an example. There's a huge painting of Fort Gustavus in Chinsurah in the Amsterdam Museum, and there are wonderful digital copies available online. And in my Dutch cemetery project, I've written about it. But what I missed was that this painting had like small sections on top which depicted the sati, which was the widow burning, and then there was a little festival, a fair that was going on, a Hindu festival, and there was a little tent with kind of some Mughal official. So these are things that are caught in this huge kind of panoramic view, and they're missed because the coding, the metadata that we are putting in this is about the first kind of Dutch colonial fort that is built in this part of the world in Bengal. And we're talking about the factory, the East India Company, the Dutch East India Company, all of this. But somehow, I think when we are coding this, have thought to look at the other parts that the artist is trying to portray, and so which is what I was trying to say, that you're absolutely right that we do kind of certainly need to assemble the big data, and this is what we are doing all the time. But we often kind of uh, forget to look at what the little data is, because it is the appeal of kind of establishing I don't know, patterns and I don't know, statistics that kind of takes prevalence often. So that's what I was kind of trying to say, that somebody like Moti Khanum would be lost again in, despite all our concerns with kind of subaltern studies and all. Yeah.
Are there any more questions for Souvik? Littled. Yeah, sorry.
So, yeah, a very brief response, Deborah, to your point, just very briefly. Absolutely right that colonial archives also kind of work on the basis of serendipity. I mean, although they want to do otherwise, but and it's very fortunate, really. But I think the cemetery archive, for example, because cemeteries are not considered to be archivable, were not considered to be archivable as such. You don't see very many cemetery archives around, and I often get kind of asked, why am I doing this? But that there's also this unconventionality about kind of what you were looking at as an archive, I think. So yeah, so that was very useful for me to kind of start with, and at that point I was talking about these people as the colonial subalterns, because the people who were in the colonial edifice, but you were also rendered subaltern really by the colonial archives. I don't know if you just might think about that, because it's not that somebody like Charles Reed gets a voice in the colonial archives really, but they're kind of saying a lot of things, and the cemetery, which is such an unusual kind of location, often yields so much information that we don't. And when you connect the digital cemetery archives together with other digital archives, there's again further, okay.
Abira, yeah, did you want to, I did open the link that you posted on the Somali photographic diaspora. Do you want to ask your question?
Okay, sorry, I was going to ask, I just said, have you explored the idea of using, there's work by Michelle Caswell and Gillian that talks about imagined archives, and also Saidia Hartman, where she uses critical fabulation as a way of trying to address absences or kind of the bureaucratic nature of archives. And I just wondered if that's something that you thought about pursuing to address this, or how do you find ways of trying to I don't know, counter stories, or just this is a question that I have as well. Like, you have the archive, and either you completely scrap it or you find ways of working with it or finding flexibility within it. So yeah, I just wondered what your approach is in regards to that.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, and I'm very new to looking at things at these archives which I've built, because because I was so close to building them, we're using a certain framework, certain way of thinking. It has taken me that many years to kind of start looking at my own work. So absolutely about imagined archives and archives of trying to archive what is not directly visible or tangible. And there now I've been kind of doing a lot more with the Dutch archive, which I just mentioned, which I haven't because there was 15 minutes, so I didn't want to bring that in. But there is an entire kind of you see, there is a temple in Chinsura which has 2 drums. These drums were donated by the Dutch governor to the temple priest, and they were donated. And there is a Shiva idol in silver, and they were donated because there was a challenge. There was a practice around this time of the year. There was a fair where Hindu monks would jump on knives and sharpen blades. So the Dutch wanted to stop the practice, and then the governor said that we will not stop it if you can jump on our cutlasses and escape unscathed. And these guys, they were actually able to jump on the cutlasses and nothing happened to them. So that's why the Dutch governor donates the drums. Now, this is something that I cannot get in an archive. This is what the temple priest tells me. And he says this because he's been told this by his father and then by the person who was the priest before that. So these are these absences that I cannot justify. I cannot put a citation, right? I cannot say like XYZ, cite so and so. And so that's beyond the, and you might just say that I'm making it all up. But there is an importance in what is not there but yet there. So this is how I'm kind of trying to access this. But I will certainly read your article, and there's a lot that I'm beginning to kind of think of these 2 archives that I've built in this way. So yeah.
Thanks, Souvik. Are there any other questions? In that case, let's move on to the second speaker, Shanmugapriya. Thank you so much, Souvik. So Shanmugapriya is a wonderful colleague here at Lancaster University, but unfortunately at the moment not at Lancaster University because she's the COVID pandemic has trapped her in South India. But she's currently working as a postdoctoral researcher in the HRC-funded project Digital Innovation in Water Scarcity in Coimbatore. She completed her PhD at IIT Indore, our partner institution in this project. And her research and teaching interests are really enormously interdisciplinary in the digital humanities, environmental humanities and digital literature. She's particularly interested, and this is what she'll talk to us about today, in building and applying digital tools and technologies for humanities research. So currently the topics that she's interested in are on text mining, geographic text analysis and mapping, and digital culture. So welcome, Shanmugapriya.
Thank you, Debs. I'll just start sharing my PPT. Okay. Thank you so much, Debs, for the introduction, and very good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk about near web publication and challenges in developing web publication for Indian historical text. So as Debs mentioned, this application is the result of our AHRC project, Digital Innovation in Water Scarcity in Coimbatore, India. So, this application is developed by myself and one or three other computer scientists. So I'll just directly move to my presentation. In the recent history of digital India, India has seen many significant developments in terms of converting cultural resources into digital, and created many digital archives and digital libraries. And for example, National Library of India and National Museum for Manuscripts and National Digital Library. These avenues provide a number of digital documents and materials. While it's important to acknowledge this development in India, there is a gap in terms of developing advanced digitizing process and tools to study the digital resources. Of course, location and the status of the institutions and our organizations determine the digitizing process. For example, the premier institutions and organizations which are located in the urban and semi-urban areas are able to obtain the fundings as they have proper infrastructure and other resources for digitizing cultural resources. So, but when it comes to local libraries and archives in the small towns, districts and villages, which also house a rare number of historical documents and other materials, often lack the infrastructure to acquire the fund for the process of digitizing. And India is home to many old and big libraries, but still many of the state, district historical, most importantly the small historical archives have not been digitized yet. And because of that, many fragile and endangered documents are lying on the shelves in the small libraries and archives around the country. So for example, this is the British India Gazetteer, which I took from one of the district record centers in Tamil Nadu. So we can see how the Gazetteer looks like. It's in the precarious state. So there are a number of British India Gazetteers are lying like this in the center, and I was also told nearly 600 documents of British India Gazetteers are in the particular district record center. So there are more than 5 district record centers around Tamil Nadu. So we can imagine like how much the number of the number of British India Gazetteers are in the record centers. So, first of all, in digital history itself has many challenges. For example, Ian Grigari says that digitizing historical materials is a two-stage process. First one is to digitize the physical document, and the second one is to convert the digital document into machine-readable format. So then we also have issue of spelling variations, but computer scientists, they came up with spelling correction algorithms. But still there are many possibilities. This spelling correction algorithm also produce new errors instead of resolving the existing errors. So manual correction would be feasible, but still it's very difficult for a large number of texts that needs to be corrected manually because it's time consuming. Then when it comes to Indian digital history, we have more challenges. First of all, we do not have any digital consortium or digital library that is dedicated to provide access to the corpus of machine-readable text for computer-assisted research. But still, scholars can find some of the documents in the National Library of India, Google Books and Internet Archive, but most of the time these documents are merely scanned images, and maybe very few of them can be machine readable, but still these documents are messy, so we need to clean it and encode it for the further computer assisted research. So it can be possible for funded projects. Those can afford for cleaning the text through third party. But when it comes to individual research scholars, it's very difficult for them, particularly those who do not have research fund for cleaning the data. And besides this, we have also specific challenges because since our project focuses British colonial Indian historical texts, which are of course written in English, but they also have words from other Indian languages such as Tamil, Telugu, Urdu and other Indian languages. And another issue is the different spellings of Indian names, and mainly the transliteration of Indian names. And even in a single text, we can see different spellings of just one particular name. So to solve this second issue, we just did some experiment and we tried our best to develop a web application for this domain specific field. We named this application as NEER, which means water. That's because our project aim focuses the transformation of water bodies and water scarcity in the British government to present. And this application is developed by using customized customized named entity recognition, regular expressions, Unicode, MySQL, and RJSMap, and other few more tools. So as I mentioned, the issue we confronted is the inconsistency in the spellings of location and water bodies. And for example, the river Noyal, and the Noyal is also refers to a place name. So, but it has different spellings such as Noel, Noyel, and Noil. So we actually developed a unique code. I mean, you developed an algorithm that we named it as a unique code. So which extracts Indian names. That's what we aimed for from the historical documents. When comparing, it compares with the database of English words. Once it extracts the unique words in the historical document, the user can go through the unique words and decide the words that they want to use as entities to extract the data. But merely extracting the keywords or entities for research is not really sufficient sometimes. So we also use regular expressions algorithm to extract these sentences and paragraphs of the input entities or keywords. And also the user can tag and comment the entities manually. And they can also map the places either automatically or manually. Still it is in the experiment, still working stage. It's a kind of experimentation. So we try to improve the application, and it will be also made open access through our website portal. I quickly do the demo of the application, which I recorded previously. So this is the interface, the first page. Please forgive me because still we haven't focused much on the first page. But what we aimed for, this is for the fresh user who just opens the account of application. But this is for the user who already used this application. So if they are left in between, they can just directly go to wherever they left in the application from clicking here. So let's get started. So once you open this application, this is the first page where you can upload the text. And once you upload the text, so you can the algorithm actually goes through the unique words and extract the unique words first. And then you can see in the sides panel, it actually displays the unique words. And these are the documents I actually exploded earlier. So I'm going to use one of the documents. Okay, next page. So when you click the unique words, and then it takes you to the further entities page. So here the file name, and the second is the entities. So the user, if they are aware about their text, like if they knew that what they want to extract from the text, so they can just merely type the entities here by using separated by comma. And also you can see these are the downside. These are the unique words that extracted by using unique code. So they can also click unique words which they want to extract. I know what the unique words I want to extract because I have already explored this document. So what I do, so I just simply write the entities which for these entities I want to extract information, and the place names I give here Bhavani. So Bhavani actually has 6 spellings of a single word Bhavani. So I actually select all different spellings of Bhavani. Bhavani is also place name and river name. So I have selected and then I submitted. So it is a huge text, so it takes some time to process. Okay, once you submit it, and then the process, it takes to the next page where you can see the color codings of our entities, what we have given in the previous stage. So Bhavani river entity, and you can also see the scientist panel location. It also shows that what kind of key entities you have given for the document, and then you can also see by clicking here. If you can also see in the separate tab by clicking here, and if you are satisfied with this stage itself, you can download this document as well. And but if you want to explore further, you can click tag, and then because I have processed many files, which is why it shows the list of files. So I'm just clicking the file again, which I did previously. Okay, so once you open the tag page, you can see three features here. The first one is the settings. There you can see three tags, main tags, and then you can select any words from here and tag them. And if you want to provide any comments, or if you want to provide any particular name for the tags, you can provide here. And if you want to, once you have selected many words and or tag, you have to selected many tags, but you want to delete them, you can just simply click the delete icon. You can delete them. And if you want to compare the previous entities which you have done in the previous stage, automatically extracted entities, you can click the eye icon, symbol, then you can read the previous stage. So I have selected this land at the proposal. I give some, this is just sample, so I just randomly wrote something. So then once you submit it, you can see it is actually highlighted. And then I select this Madras is the place name, which is currently now called as Chennai. So I selected that place, and then I just provide some comment, and if it is a correct spelling, you can just leave it as well. But if it is a wrong spelling, because we need to extract the latitude, longitude for the place names in order to map them. So if it is wrong, the spelling is really wrong, then you can use this icon to search the correct spellings, and it will take to you map, and then you can just type the correct spelling of the place name. And then you can click this plus symbol to add that in your database. So sorry, I did some typo error, so I did it again, but I forgot to delete that. The Madras is tagged as a location, and you can also this location symbol. So when you click that symbol, it will take to a map. Also, it actually selected all the madrasas as location, but if you don't want that process, you can delete them as well. So it just takes you to the place. This was just a quick check, and then as I mentioned earlier, if you click that I symbol, it takes you the previous stage. And then in the download page, you can download whatever you have done so far, like all the process you can download here. Even the entities you selected and automatically extracted the paragraphs of the entities, that also you can view and download as a PDF file. Actually, I download as a PDF file, and then also you can this is actually a CSV file of the unique words. So you can extract only the unique words. You can download them as well. So these are the unique words, and then the raw files also you can download again. And finally, the tags. The tags, like whatever you have done so far, you can download them in a CSV file. Okay, it will open up. Okay. See here all the like just the sample data I did. You can see all the data here, and it also extracted latitude and longitude of the places as well. The real challenge is again now. I'll show the okay, this is the unique words of the document I used now. I just sorted out by using alphabetical order. So you can see different spellings of even English words. That's the issue now we are facing, because what we aim to extract only Indian names that we achieved. Because here you can see Alangiam is the one place name, but you can see like different spellings of Alangiam. And then Amravati is the river name. You can see 3 varieties of Amravati, and also you can see here 3 more varieties of Amravati. Anandapur is the place name, but you can see nearly 9 different varieties of Anandapur, the spellings you can see. But the issue is now it also extracted the incorrect English words, I mean incorrect spellings of English words. So, but we are working on it, but it's very difficult to remove the incorrect spellings of English words. That's because if we use the spelling correction algorithm, it also changes the Indian names as well. So that's the real challenge now in this application. But I welcome any comments, suggestions, questions that make us think out of box. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shanmu.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I just removed the I felt in. Okay.
Thank you. That was fascinating. Does anyone have any questions before I take us to? I had a question. Ben, do you want to speak yours out on name identity recognition algorithms?
Sure, thanks, Deb. Yeah, I think you came onto this at the end, Shanmugapriya, around the process of trying to work out not only the spelling variation, but then you said you customized the NER to recognize places, people, and events. And presumably that was to recognize Indian place names and people's names. So I was interested in how you actually went about doing that.
You're asking about how did I extract Indian place names, right? I mean Indian names.
Yeah, it was more, you said you customized the NER to then do that for you in theory. Is that right?
No, I didn't customize anything to extract place names. So I actually created this algorithm to extract the words which are not in English, which are not English words. Actually, what this algorithm does, we have database of English words. So this algorithm compares each word in the document with English words, and if it is not in the English words, it extracts that word as a unique word. Am I making sense?
Yes, that makes sense. So basically, you'd almost have to manually create your own data set like you have in those CSV files to then try and train a target.
Yeah, actually, we have created this, and then as I mentioned, that another issue, like even the historical documents have different English spellings. That's because this document was produced in the 19th century. So, but if we use the spelling correction algorithm of English, because that's very much available on the Python packages, but that also changes the Indian names. So, but we achieved to some extent. That's what I can say.
Yeah, it sounds like although you've got an enormous amount of data, it's going to be a lot of manual work.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. That's really interesting. Good luck.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that, which is about, I mean, these are by their nature profoundly geographical texts. So they're reports on forestry. So there's going to be a preponderance, if anything isn't in English, it's probably going to be a place that was encountered. And I just wondered, and this is, I mean, what would be the kind of texts where we'd suddenly find that it wasn't a geography, that we might find more nouns, because we know that there's a corpus of revenue terms, for example, like maestri and tahsildar, and you know, that become transliterated into English but remain non-English terms. I mean, is there a way of intersecting this database with something like Hobson Jobson, even as a database of English words that are actually Indian?
Okay. I think, yeah, I have used these parts of speech tag. I think I removed here because I don't want to confuse everyone. So, but actually I have developed a code for spots of speech tag. So which automatically tags whether it's noun, it's a verb or adverb. So in that way we can also segregate, segregate only nouns and, only verbs, only adjectives. So it actually requires some manual, examination of the whether it extracted correctly or not. So in that way, if it is not geographical text, we can use that as one trick to extract the what the data we want.
That's great, thank you. Does anyone else have any? I had a broader question about the way in which digitizing might change the habits of historians. I mean, I remember, many times having discussions with colleagues about requests that they had made, and I'm sure there'll be other people in this room who've had similar requests saying, I understand you've got a copy of the Torture Commission's report from Madras Presidency in the 1840s. Can I have a copy of it if it's a photocopy? And we tend to be very hesitant to share our materials because we see them, because we've put all that labour into getting hold of them, we see them as our stuff, even though they are a facsimile of an archival document. And we really don't like sharing our notes, which we regard as being absolutely ours. And I wonder, because of the expense of cleaning, of readying a digitised text for machine reading, whether that requires us to think differently about archival materials rendered as data and to stop seeing them as our stuff. And certainly in Britain, funding bodies demand that. They say, listen, if we've paid to have this cleaned, it's not yours, it has to be shared as a resource. And I just wondered if you or anyone in the meeting has any thoughts about whether we need an explicit new ethics that confronts our habits to be quite acquisitive and jealous of the things that we acquire from archival searches, that breach these new issues of digitization and cleaning. So I wondered if you had anything. I mean, Shanmu, your work, so much of your work has been in DH. You probably are by more nature a sharer, whereas archival historians tend to be quite jealous. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm waiting for someone to answer, then maybe I can just say whatever I can. I'm thinking about it. So,
Souvik, do you think altruism is the best word? Oh, sorry, Chris, do you want to come in?
Sure. No, I mean, I think this is a really great point, but also I wanted to say how much I enjoyed the presentation as well. But it also seems that one of the complications that's often encountered, that I would encounter in that context, is that many of the collections that one might wish to engage with, the one that's kind of limited by the agreements with the Records Office, which collections are on deposit, about how they can be shared freely. So it's not always in our gifting to share these resources, because in order to work with them, I don't know about you, but I've often had to sign waivers indicating that I will share no further, use this material, from personal research only, without any right to reproduce it. So something maybe, I guess, part of an interesting ongoing conversation to work closely with archivists, with curators, with collections managers to ensure that kind of free exchange of information as it's being cleaned and linked and improved can really move forward. But I guess that's why we need librarians and archivists to be part of the conversation too.
You're absolutely right. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, when you get permission to photocopy something, certainly at the Indian archives I've worked with, you do sign something saying this is for research purposes only. I would say that's not the reason why we won't share. I think it tends to be the labour involved in acquiring that for ourselves. We don't tend to think about the copyright issue so much as we just don't want to give it because it's, you know, often cost us a great deal of time and sometimes money to get hold of it. I think, I mean, Rihanna's right, particularly with digitisation times COVID. Perhaps this is a particularly apposite time to think about digitised materials and our capacity to share digital materials in a way that just doesn't exist with materials, and what that means for democratisation of archival practice.
But so just to be a little freewheeling for the moment, because I've manifested visually. The presentation made me think so much of this call that's just recently gone out between the AHRC and NERC, NERC. And I did wonder if there might be actually interesting opportunities there. I just thought I'd draw that to your attention, so I put the link in the URL. Happy to say more, happy to have a chat about that subsequently, but I just wanted to draw attention to it because it seemed actually a fruitful context for some of this research.
And it's money.
Well, money helps, or it can do.
Yeah, Ben, I wondered if there's a kind of overlap between attitudes to open source codes and sort of new forms of copyright and the way in which we're reevaluating archives and archival material that I think people who write code think much more instinctively as about a community. Nobody can do this on their own, and therefore you put it out there. We do tend to do history on our own, traditionally speaking. Shanmu, sorry, did you want to come in and say anything?
Yeah, I was thinking about the Gutenberg project and Kathy Trust project in America, where you cannot have access but they have proper, cleaned data. You can use it for the any DH purpose, but that is not open access. But Gutenberg project is open access project. So so this Gutenberg is mainly focusing, of course, for British. I know that, but when it comes to, they also digitized a few Rabindranath Tagore's works, and you can also download them for computer-assisted research. But due to copyrights issue, they can't produce so many other Indian-related works, but in India, actually, that's the issue. Though we have I recently identified that National Library of India, they have digitized a number of Indian historical texts, but they are just simply scanned images. And if someone, as you said, put their labor into cleaning them, and if they make it open access, then their labor is questioned. So then labor is like digital labor is like we cannot take it for granted. And then, but if it is more involvement from the funding organizations or government side, and then it would be beneficial for other academicians who do not put their digital labor for this kind of work and making it open access. So that's what I thought. Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we move on?
Oh, okay. Is it open? Hathi Trust is open? Okay.
Hathi Trust is really
only
good.
For
and
some
it's getting
projects. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Catherine,
you.
did you want to come in?
Hello. So first off, thank you. That was really interesting. And the near tool looks fantastic. So basically, I have quite a basic question. I was just wondering when it will be available, or if it will be available online at some point.
Oh, sorry, you are asking when is it available online?
Yes.
Oh, great. So once our website is still, under the constructions. once it is ready and Debs will be making it open access from Lancaster itself, it's going to be boom. So we are also so excited looking for that, but still I want to add one more feature for unique words. Like in the first page when I show the unique words, so if the user clicks the unique words, it should take to the context of the text, so where it extract the words. So in that case it is very much useful, like it saves our time to get the information immediately. Okay, this key entity has this kind of information, so the user can decide, okay, whether I want this, I don't want this. So according to that they can go ahead selecting the unique words. So that's what I am aiming next.
Sounds fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, we should hopefully be able to get this up online at Lancaster soon, but we're waiting on ISS. But yes, soon, hopefully it'll be available. In that case, Shanmu, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'll introduce our final speaker. Thank you. Nikita Sharma. Nikita's a recent postgraduate in development from Azim Premji University. She's engaged in a diverse number of development projects as a development practitioner and researcher. She's been in close contact with stakeholders from rural areas, low-income groups and minorities, and has fieldwork experience at the grassroots level across 5 states in India. She's currently working in the outreach department at Panjab Digital Library on content curation, documentation, metadata and cataloguing. And she has a wide understanding of sustainable development and recognising cultural heritage as a valuable resource. Her specific interests include an interdisciplinary focus on preserving cultural heritage to create inclusive, just, humane access and society. So her presentation today is entitled Breaking the Barriers, a Case of Panjab Digital Library. Welcome, Kavita. I think I'll now switch everything off to give you the maximum bandwidth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So I'll be presenting the case of Panjab Digital Library, which has its headquarters in Chandigarh, India. And I would start by giving a short background of the geographical location of Punjab, British India. It was partitioned into India and Pakistan in August 1947. The end of British imperialism came with the territorial division, which entailed partitioning of cultural heritage. So presently we have India's Punjab and Pakistan's Punjab, and the undivided Punjab, as it was before the partition, it had the oldest archaeological sites in the subcontinent. It had artifacts dating back to Gupta period, Harappan period and Mughal period. But this region has it has bore the brunt of mass violence and migration. Situated on the volatile India-Pakistan border, it is heavily militarized on both the sides. So Punjab has inherited a fractured self, and it has witnessed the loss of valuable heritage wealth. Punjab is surrounded by 4 countries, so it is like a perfect, the geographical area is very volatile, with Punjab sharing its borders with Afghanistan, Pakistan, China and India. So it's like a perfect recipe for disaster and for the loss of cultural heritage. There have been numerous knowledge-based inequalities. It has knowledge has always been in control and check. There were the concept of chained libraries in from 16th century onwards, where the books were tied to chains, and people could not take the books out from the libraries. Privileged elites, they have been serving as gatekeepers of knowledge. There's the vulnerability of old knowledge getting extinct due to destructions of time, age, natural decay. And there's this ceremony a practice in Punjab of the ritual of cremating the old books. So old books, they are considered as living organisms, and once they reach the age of maturation, there's a ritualistic cremation of old books which takes place. So because of all these inequalities, the knowledge has been not open to common public. Commodification of knowledge is also creating a new age of colonialism, and also how the global north is influencing the knowledge of global south. So digitization is sort of provides a democratization of knowledge. And this is the second time in the history of the world that knowledge is migrating from one form to another. The first time when writing was invented and knowledge was transferred from mind to paper, the handwritten documents and texts, they were transferred to printed media. Even if it is true that our libraries are overflowing with books, never before in the history of mankind has there been a century as destructive to books as the 20th. UNESCO quoted this in 1996. Some of the paper documents which comes to Punjab Digital Library for digitization, the quality of the paper is so brittle that even when you turn the pages, the page might get destroyed. So digitization gets very difficult in those scenarios. There are many instances of libricide, as we can call it, the loss of books that has happened in the 20th century. So coming to the case study of Punjab Digital Library, it was formally started in 2003 to digitize, preserve and expand access to culturally rich and the diverse contents of the Punjab region without any discrimination to script, nationality or religion. PDL has been digitizing old books and manuscripts. And since it has been 18 years since PDL has started, and so far over 32 million pages have been digitized, and they are available, 6 million of them are available for free global access on PDL's website. There's a vast pool of knowledge which is available with PDL in the form of manuscripts, rare out of print books and coins. Some of the oldest digitized material that is available with PDL dates back to 1453. There's a Devanagari script which is available with PDL dating back to 1453. There are coins dating back to 200 BC. So PDL addresses the preservation of all this heritage which takes place due to ignorance and destruction. It provides limitless lifespan of digitally preserved material. These are some of the manuscripts which have been digitized by PDL. Manuscripts ranging in different scripts from Gurmukhi to Devanagari to Urdu, Farsi and Shada scripts, they have been digitized by Punjab Digital Library, and metadata is available for the digitized material, including the title, year, description, custodian, completion status. However, the entire metadata is so far not available. There are some books and manuscripts for which there is not a complete description is available because of the either because of the lack of resources, and the entire financial budget is inclined towards digitization of documents. So the purpose of PDL is to make these documents visible, accessible, and searchable by any potential user with access to the internet. So the way this process of digitization takes place in PDL, first of all, there is a search for valuable items. These need to be located, and people who are the custodians of these valuable material, they need to be agreed to. Several agreement forms are signed with them, like intellectual property rights, then access rights are managed, and then a discussion takes place whether the material, is it delicate enough, whether it can be transported to PDL's office for digitization, or the equipment is taken off-site for it to be digitized. So PDL offers both off-site and on-site digitization. So there's a whole process that takes place, that how to move all these, all the cameras and equipment, how to move it to the site of digitization without any damage. Then the digitization procedure is started. The material is categorized, and it is decided what type of equipment needs to be used. Is it like, for example, flatbed scanners are used, a different type of equipment is used for digitizing negatives, for photographs, for textiles. The photo is captured, it is then checked by a team, and then if needed, the picture is taken again, and from the same machine. If the dimensions are not proper, or if the quality is not okay, the image needs to be taken again, and from the same machine. For example, PDL has its projects running in Shimla and Patiala. So if a book that has been digitized in Shimla and its dimensions are not okay, so the book is again sent back there for digitizing, for rephotographing from the same machine, because different scanners have different colors. And then image optimization takes place, where the merging of image happens, and then it is checked again, and then the images are cropped to remove any unnecessary extra margins. And then the data is converted into OCR, which serves two purposes. It converts the data into black and white, and it makes the text searchable. And then watermarking and stamping of data happens, and the original records go back either to the libraries or museums where they have come from, or back to the custodian, and it is getting we get it in written form that the custodian has received the material back. So since 2003, since digitization has started in PDL, it has generated over 15,000 TB of data, and it is stored offline in different places in different countries. It lends much greater visibility. It has enhanced research and scholarship. There's information centralization, where people can access data from PDL's website. Time on research has decreased, and which has therefore increased critical thinking and analysis benefit, and and it provides an ability to go in depth, to have a specialization of study. So when the image is taken, it is converted into computer readable and text searchable documents through OCR software. However, since most of the data, like majority of the data is in the local scripts or languages like Devanagari or Gurmukhi. So OCR for searching those scripts is so far not available, because the accuracy of such software is not so proper. So for the English texts, all the data is searchable. However, for the local scripts, the quality of the data is such that it can be made OCR available whenever the software is readily available. There is criteria-based quick searching, sharing resources, and obviously unlimited lifespan of data. So different tools have been customized for digitization at PDL. There are sheet-fed scanners for newspapers. There are customized tools for paintings and textiles, for digitizing fulkaris and dupattas. Metal frames have to be constructed and camera has to be mounted on it, so that textile can be digitized, and the quality, it is ensured that the quality is high. Generally an A4 size paper is 30 MBs, and a digitized painting, it can easily, of 5 by 7 feet, it can easily be printed in 52 by 70 feet without much pixelation. And it is made sure that PDL backups are kept in more than one media. For offline backups, PDL employs DVDs, LTO6 tapes, IBM storage services, servers, and hard disks to store its data. So of every page digitized, there are 5 copies of it which are made. And they are stored at separate locations in different countries to avoid instant loss. And the resources are stored in different formats: RAW, TIFF, JPEG, and PDF. And different computer applications have also been developed by PDL. For example, the digitization of books takes place in alternate pages. For example, if a book is like this, so first all the pages of the right hand side will get digitized, and then all the pages of the left hand side will get digitized. So in case a picture is not proper and a page has to be rephotographed, so the name of the new file, the numbering will change, right? So for a correct numbering of pages, different computer applications have been developed, which will ensure that the numbering of the pages remains same. So for instance, if we have this picture, just to tell the quality of the digitization. So no matter how much you zoom it, you can see the a cycle, and the details are very accurately seen. So to overcome the barriers of knowledge sharing, Open Access has put forward to bring equity to information consumption and to advance inclusive development. This open access that PDL provides, it has sort of a democratizing effect in the sense that it eliminates barriers and grants access to a larger number of people, which was not available before. We do have constraints of budget and resource crunch. As our main focus right now is on digitization, but for any individual can come for the digitization of their old documents to PDL, and PDL does not charge a single penny from them, and it survives mostly on donations and gifts from people. And the government has been slashing the funds for digitization since a past couple of years, and there is a need for thorough policy guidelines which need to be established for preservation of cultural heritage. And it is not possible for any one institution to have all the information stored. So a collaborative approach is strongly recommended for this purpose, like maybe interlibrary loaning and sharing of data across different libraries.
Nikita, thank you so much. That was absolutely fascinating and incredibly rich. As you can see from the comments, I've got a bunch of questions. I'm not going to abuse my chair's privilege any further. Both Souvik and I were very excited by the textile digitisation, and we both had questions about it. I wondered where they came from, and Souvik has the more interesting question, which is what's the metadata for the textiles?
What is the metadata for fulkaris, dupattas, and textiles like? Oh, so the metadata, I'm sorry. The metadata for textiles includes each digitized item is given an accession number, and you can search for that item through that accession number. And for textiles, we have different columns, as in the width and the height of the textile, the length, when it was digitized, but mostly it is searchable through its accession number.
So would that include any reference to design motifs, color, age?
Yes. So as I was saying, the metadata PDL still has to work. Its prime motive is for the preservation of material. So it is allocating all of its funds in digitizing right now. Metadata is available for a large majority of material, but still we have to work on writing proper descriptions and the dates and time periods of different digitized material.
Thank you. Ben, did you want to ask your question about file size and sustainability?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, there are a couple of questions in here, but I'm just really interested in how you actually run such a large infrastructure with a huge amount of data. And because you said that the data is stored in 5 different countries. So yes. Which countries are these, presumably apart from India?
Data is stored in, we have our offices in USA. Sorry, I can hear my echo back. There are offices in Canada, USA, UK as well, where data is stored and it is transported from India to these countries.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because we've been discussing kind of decolonialization, but of course, whenever you're dealing with the web, pretty much everything ends up in America, even physical data. So I was wondering, is there any plan at some point in the future to have it all in India, or do you want it spread out for data security? And
yeah, so it has been, there is no plan of keeping all of the data in one location in India. It has been done so, spread out in different countries purposefully for its protection, as in to save it from calamities or other, like storing data in one geographical location is not so advisable. So for its posterity, it has been stored in different countries.
Sorry, last one if I can, Deb.
Yeah, sure.
So the environmental angle, I mean, I know relatively speaking, 15,000 terabytes isn't actually that much. But could you see a point, something like the Internet Archive, for example, could you see a point in the future where we need to think very carefully about how we store and process all this data? Because you can use an awful lot of energy.
Are you asking that it is becoming an environmental concern, and how do we deal with it in the future?
Yeah, I'm thinking more from the point of view of an archive or a library who probably have not got the funding of a massive corporation. I mean, is that something you consider when you're thinking of data storage, or is it just we need to do this cheaply and easily?
Yes, because of budget constraint, we are just focusing on preserving as much data as we can right now, and thinking on we have not really thought on these aspects so far.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Maya and I actually had similar questions about. Well, Maya, do you want to come in and ask your question?
Thank you. Yeah, Nikita, this is so fascinating, and it also is so inspiring to sort of realize the possibility of just sheer persistence, over these decades. So the question really was, I think I may have missed a conversation about the funding model, but whether materials have been displayed in conjunction with other partners. And I mentioned the Partition Museum because it's a private initiative, right? I also note that the spelling of Panjab is P-A-N. So in a sense, it is already distancing itself from a governmental P-U-N, which would be very Indian government sort of spelling. And yeah, just sort of how would the public get to engage with this material? Because it's, enormous. Thank you.
So starting with the spellings of Punjab, there is a definite difference between the way the Punjab is spelled today and the way it should be if one keeps the pronunciation and the mother tongue in mind. So Punjab, it is a compound of two Persian words. Panj, it has Panj, which means five, and Ab, which means water, which literally means the land of five rivers. So it is conventionally spelled as P-U-N, Punjab with the U. But for etymological Persian forms, to keep that intact, we have we spell it as Punjab with an A, and we are not alone in our preference for Punjab, P-A-N-J-A-B. Take the name of Punjab University, for example. It is one of the best known examples. They also spell out Punjab with an A. We have actually been spellings of a lot of places, they were changed after partition. For example, Patiala was also spelled as P-U-T-T-I-A-L-A, Putiala. So most of these spellings have been they were kept by our colonizers who were ruling these areas and who could read and write back then. So spellings of a large number of places did get changed. But Punjab, if it needs to be kept in its Persian form, it will be pronounced as, it should be written as P-A-N-J-A-B, Punjab. And for your second question, that if there has been any collaboration with institutions like the Partition Museum, PDL keeps organizing exhibitions every year in collaboration with Punjab government. It is a source of revenue generation for the organization, where it displays its material to people. So that is one type of collaboration that PDL engages in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nikita, thank you. There was another question from, is it Ansi, about the question of religion, and if you could say more about the ritualistic cremations that you mentioned.
So influence of religion on the knowledges. So there is in Punjab and even in other states, there is this group of institutions which regard books as living organisms, the old handwritten manuscripts and the rare old literature, and they think that once a book reaches its wear and tear stage, it needs to be like a living organism, it needs to be cremated. So there are it is an activity that has been going on behind closed curtains and in different religious institutions where piles and piles of books and manuscripts, they are burnt on pyres, and their ritualistic cremation happens. So it has been going on for decades in Punjab. Have I answered your question?
Hi, I'm Ansi. Hi. Yeah. My question was regarding Sikhism also, as in, because I've heard that even the Guru Granth Sahib, when, like for instance, in when it gets old, they don't give it away. They also have this ritualistic aspect that you're talking about. So that's why I was asking specifically regarding Sikhism. So is it from that, is the origin from Sikhism, or is it like different religions which have this aspect?
So there is a documentary which is available online called Seva. They have tried to cover this tradition, this practice of ritualistic cremation of old books happening. So it does come from Sikhism. It goes on, it takes place in Sikh religious institutes, but they give, there's no discrimination to any religion. They also do cremation of books belonging to Hinduism, Jain scriptures, old Buddhist scriptures, all the scriptures which are the pages of which are getting torn and they are decaying, all of them are burnt together. So there is a crying necessity to digitize those scriptures as well, as in it's a huge chunk of history which is getting lost due to this tradition.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed your paper. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There was one more question from Margaret, which is again following off the textiles. Are the textiles available on any website yet?
Yes. So PDL has its official website called www.punjabdigilife.org. I'll write down the name here, and you can access the different Fulkari designs, manuscripts, coins, newspapers, although all the information is not available online because of the limited server storage space that we have, but still you will be able to find a significant amount of material.
I think I've found all the questions, but please feel free to put your hands up if I've overlooked a question. Can I ask you another question?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Initially, I had a question about how you were dealing with materials that are seen as sensitive. So there are all sorts of restrictions placed on access to and digitization of maps, with Punjab being a profoundly sensitive border region. But actually, I think maybe this is a more interesting question, which is to say, is the potential to use digitization to think about a sort of unpartitioning of Punjab, to seek connections with that part of Punjab that went to Pakistan? Is that something that's been discussed at all?
Yes. So I think I did mention in the presentation about the sense of unity that it gives, that it creates. So bringing the heritage material of West and East Punjab all together on one common platform, and material which is easily accessible by anyone sitting in any corner of the world. So it does give us that sense of unity and unpartitioning, as you said, of Punjab. And regarding the copyright material, the question that you asked, we like before we digitize any material, different sorts of agreement forms are signed with the custodian. So it is upon the custodian, if she or he or the institution of which we are digitizing the material, if they want to share their resources with the larger public, so we will provide them to, we will make it accessible to people, but however they can put on their own clauses of confidentiality, and if that is the case, the material will remain with PDL, but we will not be sharing it with public. So some of the digitized books and photographs and other material, they do have these confidentiality clauses, in which case they are not open for public access.
That's very interesting. I was wondering as well, could you give us a little extra help in finding the textile materials on the website?
Yeah.
Margaret was asking, are they found via, I noted that there wasn't a search function for the textiles.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Are you able to share your screen so we can see the?
Yeah, sure. So, sorry, I'm not able to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Not quite yet, still the end of the slideshow.
You might need to stop sharing and then reshare again.
Okay.
Right.
How do I? Oh.
You've stopped sharing, so I think now if you share it again, we should be able to see your search engine.
Yes. Are you able to view it? Is it visible?
Not yet. Sometimes it takes a little while. Are you sharing now?
Yes, I'm trying to.
Well, I mean, if this doesn't work, we can always chase you for details of how to use it to get at the textiles, which a number of us are clearly obsessed by. We can always ask you after the session.
Yes.
How large is the collection of textiles that's been digitized?
There are over 1,000 to 2,000 textiles which have been digitized, and most of them are Fulkaris only. And they date back to late 19th or early 20th century.
Oh gosh. It seems, is the screen share unsuccessful?
Yeah, for some reason I'm not able to share the screen.
How would somebody find it? Is it under photographs? Because there isn't a textile tag. Maya, please feel free to chime in while we solve our
I just figured I should mention this. This was a very chance discovery actually. So there's an old sari shop in Bangalore called Vimor. Indira Gandhi used to buy her saris from them. So, they are famous and whatnot. And the lady there, I think, realized that they had been receiving a large number of donation saris. So there are these saris which are given to temples and then nobody wears them. And they went back a while and they had these beautiful motifs and literally, 100-year-old saris. And so she started this sari museum, which is literally on the roof of her house. They've kind of tried to make, make the display look attractive enough that you can hang the sari and people can look at it. But the point is really, she's also struggling with how do you digitize this medium, right? And it's so weird that there isn't much conversation across practitioners who have the same challenges. So this is why I'm so excited actually, Nikita, with the stuff you've shared, because I feel like at least we can connect the dots and refer people back to each other sometimes when we encounter, the same challenges in the field. And to think of a country that wears saris from north to south and not have a single sari museum is such a shame that, it just feels so sort of needed, worthy, and in need of encouragement especially. So that's what I wanted to say, Debs. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So as I was telling that PDL has customized many of its digitization tools on its own. So you're very right in saying that the length and the breadth of a textile is so huge. So how does digitization actually happen? I do not have the I will try to explain it, but if I had the pictures, it would have been better. So a metal frame has been designed by PDL where the textile is kept on the bottom and there is a rod which goes through the metal frame for mounting the camera. And each portion, a picture is taken of different portions of the textile, and after that, all the images are merged together to form one final image. And therefore, the size of that file is very, very high because it is actually a combination of different photos that has taken place in very high quality resolution. So there are a size of one Fulkari digitized is around 800 to 900 MBs.
Gosh, that's absolutely fascinating. And thank you, Maya and Souvik. Can I ask, are there any final questions that anyone would like, or comments that anyone would like to offer? In that case, with huge thanks to Nikita for a fascinating presentation, I'll draw this session to a close. Thank you so much to everyone for attending and for the really fascinating discussion. It's been a blast. It's been really good. And I hope to see some, if not all of you, in this afternoon session, which is on urban digital heritage. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.